is a springtime rain, to have a friend right in your corner. Your heart will feel a little warmer. Tender loving care, tender loving care. Each warm and friendly touch lets someone know you care so much. Tender loving care, tender loving care.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Greenbrier Almond, and thank you for joining us on our program, Tender Loving Care. Each week on Channel 3, I'm happy to talk about this interface between Christianity and medicine. And today I'm going to be talking about finding meaning in life, finding meaning in the purpose for why we live, in our body, our mind, our spirit, and of course finding meaning in health. I'm going to be speaking as a doctor, which I've enjoyed the practice of medicine for some 41 years, studying and practicing medicine. And now on the other side, I guess I would have to say I've either found meaning or I missed it. And I think I found meaning, at least enough to share, and hopefully this will help you. I'm going to use, as I often do, the wisdom of other people too, and compare myself to what I read and what I experience with other people. And I want to start with Rick Warren. Rick Warren has written The Purpose-Driven Life, which is perhaps the #1 bestseller by any pastor of all of history. Of course, we have the Bible, and we have great theological works out there that are ancient, but Rick Warren's still alive, still having a pastor at the Saddleback Church in California. And he said of this idea of finding meaning, he said, if God only used perfect people, nothing would ever get done. So we know that we're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Jesus Christ was perfect. I've always heard that the only perfect person that ever lived was Jesus. So God uses our imperfections, and that doesn't keep us from finding meaning. We can still find meaning even in our own imperfections. Another author that I've read, and I'm going to go back and forth to different ideas here about finding meaning as I try to describe a course of action, a prescription for finding meaning. Another author that I've read over the years is Ernest Hemingway, a war correspondent in the first instance, but of course, great writer, Nobel Prize winning author. He said in A Farewell to Arms, the world breaks everyone, and afterwards some are strong in the broken places. So the world breaks everyone. You can count on it. I have quoted Warren Brain. We bought the Brain Farm when I was a boy, up at Hemlock, and it's still in our family. And Warren and Matilda Brain lived there. They were the oldest couple in Hemlock. And he was the Sunday school superintendent at the Mount Olive United Methodist Church. And he and his wife, died in Hemlock, buried there. She was born in this same log cabin that she was then married into and lived there all of her life. But he used to say commonly, he says, it's hard to be a Christian. Now, I know we hear otherwise, that accept Christ in our heart, life will be easy. But I don't think so. Not in my own experience, and not in Warren Brain's experience, and not in Ernest Hemingway's experience. There are struggles to life. The world breaks everyone, Ernest Hemingway says. And afterwards, some are strong in the broken places. It's a powerful thought, opening up this idea. How do we seek meaning? They come back to Pastor Warren then and develop this a little bit further, and then we'll go on to other ways that this happens. A purpose-driven life has character, doesn't it? We don't develop character without making mistakes and learning from our mistakes. I like the idea of a character is what you do when no one else is watching. In other words, if you have character, you know what's right, you know what's wrong, you do what's right. Dad used to take us to Pickens a lot on house calls, and he loved the people of Pickens and Helvetia, and loved the old farmers out here in our county, and taught us a lot about life by visiting in their homes. But he told the story about one of the Zumbachs, who's a woodworker, and I know there were 3 brothers, but anyway, one of them was particularly good woodworking, and they were building a new Catholic church, which is a brick building right in Pickens still today. And they needed furniture and an altar and so forth, and so the bishop of the Catholic Church in Wheeling, the Wheeling diocese, was chastising the local priest a little bit. He said, you made a deal with this man, the local man, to build you this product, and you don't have a contract. You don't have a legal contract with him. You didn't sign anything. You only shook his hand, and how do you know that it won't be cost overruns, and how can we afford this? And the priest said, you don't understand the people of Pickens. You don't understand Mr. Zumbach. I think Rudolph Zumbach. But anyway, he said, not only will you get a better product than he promised that he'll do, it'll be built before he says it's due, and it'll come under cost. And indeed, all 3 things happened. And I use that as an example of character. That's what character is all about. So Rick Warren talks about that as the number 1 characteristic. And number 2 is, what will be the contribution of my life? Anyone who's getting life in front of them, and I'm not speaking necessarily to an audience of students right now, but I serve on the school board here in Upshur County, and I do get an opportunity as a member of the school board to speak to students, and it's a high honor, and I want to instill in them the importance of making a contribution in life, to leave the world a better place than they found it. My mother used to say that to all of us, and it's sunk into my spirit that I want to leave the world a better place than I found it. And that could be a small measure. We're not talking about earth-shattering things. Here we're talking about living in the mountains of West Virginia. One time someone asked me, what do you do in Buchanan, West Virginia? And I say, we live. We live. We have a good life, a quality of life. But we have to decide early on what is going to be our contribution in life. I'll come around to talking about how I've approached that is in the healthcare field as a doctor, and that's a high privilege to be a doctor and to be invited into people's lives when they are not beautiful, when they're sick, when they're down, when they're troubled, when disease is eating them away, and to be a part of their life and stand by them and care for them and relieve their suffering. That's a high privilege as a doctor. But you decide on your contribution. Everyone will make a contribution. Someone who paints a house and really does a great job painting a house is making a contribution. I don't want to take anything away from anyone's vocation. Another thought, just setting this up, would be Rick Warren's idea that what will be the communication of my life? What will be the communication of my life? We all are communicating some message, probably because of the Vietnam War, and I've thought about this a lot in my own life. I have taken on a patriotic turn, and many people in West Virginia are patriotic, and many of us have joined the service. Many of us have served our country in various ways and been patriotic people. My father, even before I knew about the Vietnam War, but I knew about my dad putting up the flag for all occasions, the 4th of July, Memorial Day, West Virginia Day, Veterans Day. You know, our flag would go up and be flying proudly. And there was a little ceremony we would go through. We would help Dad, and we had a special pipe hole in the front yard and we had a wooden pole, and we would carefully tie the flag without touching the ground, and we would carefully fly the flag and get it down by sunset, go through that protocol, correctly handling the flag. But that was a part of the communication of life. Many, many other ways we could communicate, but that would be an example. Then what will be the community of my life? People have decided to do various things. I was talking to a young lady today, and we were thinking about people in our classes who have left the state. We had 325, I think, in the class of 1966, Buckhannon Upshur High School. 180 of us were able to stay here, but about half of the class had to leave to get jobs and further their career. And they've given up a sense of community that those who stayed here have. We have a community. We trust each other. We're lifelong friends, and people outside don't have that. In the news right now, though the news will change tomorrow, we see the city of Baltimore in the throes of chaos as people are burning it down. They're down their own city and looting their own city, and it doesn't make sense, hurting their own policemen. But this is happening in an American city, 50 miles outside of Washington, D.C. Not just any American city, but a proud and a successful American city. So they're not sharing in a sense of community life. But those are 4 points that we can make. And now we are a poor community. I mean, West Virginia is one of the poorest states in the Union. My wife, who's from the Philippines, says that even the poorest place in America is very rich compared to the places of the Philippines. And she's right. She's right. Even any of us who are Americans are richer than 90% of the people on earth. So we're blessed. We're blessed. There's no doubt about that. But I want to quote Charles Dickens just to give you an idea that he wrote about the poverty of London in his time. And David Copperfield, a quote from David Copperfield, I think paints this picture. Whether I shall turn out to be the hero of my own life or whether that station will be held by anybody else. We all need heroes, don't we? The hero is the humble person who creates safe spaces for others. So even my experience is that the humble poor are more heroes than the rich. And there's all sorts of examples of that. But David Copperfield comes to mind. So how do you do this? How do you create meaning for life? Let's talk about the process for a few minutes. First of all, you have to define what you're going to do. And you do that through your imagination first. You imagine the greatest life that you can have, the most meaningful you can have. When we were kids, we played at things. Kids play. Play is watching what your parents do and then doing it. We played house. We played doctor. I mean, not in a nasty sense, but we just knew that what Dad did, and we tried to take blood pressure, and we tried to take the temperature, and played doctor. We played. We saw the houses being built by the owners of their houses up on our hill. Morgan Brooks building his own house. Dan Daniel building his own house. Raymond Lockwood building his house. All this up on our hill. So we played at carpentry. We built houses. We built tree houses, and we built forts and so forth like that. So you imagine it first, okay? That's the first step. And then you pretend it. Pretend it. Now, I was not a doctor when I was 10 years old, but I could pretend I was, and then gradually, even when I became a doctor, I remember getting that degree in 1974 in the spring, and my parents were there, my sisters were there, and I went across the stage, and they said, Dr. Greenbrier Almond, and I didn't feel like a doctor at that moment, but I'd been pretending all along, and I had been, introducing myself as a medical student to my patients under supervision for 4 years at the university, and now it was being acknowledged, and then we believe it. There was a time, and I think for me, when I began to believe that I was a doctor was after I was through my residency and I was coming back here and was in our emergency room at St. Joseph's and taking care of people all alone, and I could believe that I was a doctor. In a meaningful life, ultimately, it's going to be a happy life. Now, a happy life, happiness is not a goal. It's a byproduct. We don't go out and say, I want to be happy. I don't want to be rich. You know, people say that, I want to be rich, or I want to have this or that. Those are not goals, primary goals. There may be spin-offs. They may happen along the way. But there are things that you can observe about people who are happy. And I think a meaningful life would include happiness, a degree of happiness. We have talked about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in our Declaration of Independence. And Thomas Jefferson certainly was a genius to frame things the way he did. But the pursuit of happiness. So there's 4 things we could say about that, about happiness, that I think add to the conversation about what's meaningful. Doing things that meet our personal and our professional goals. So if you're goal-directed, you're going to be more happy. Take the long view. I'm not talking about the stock market or you know, that rising, or people will pursue those things in a frenzy sometimes. But goals that we can think about for a long time. Making the world a better place than you found it. Doing something beautiful for God. These are goals that will lead toward happiness, our personal and our professional goals. Loving to learn. Our Board of Education has a mission statement, and I've said if we have a mission statement, we should reference it from time to time, or else it doesn't mean anything to us. And so the other board members said, well, read it every meeting for us. And so that has become my role over the past 5 years, to read our mission statement. But anyway, one of the mission statements, goals for the Board of Education, is to have students who grow up with a lifelong love of learning. We put that into our mission statement. It's a good thing to have in a mission statement. And all of us need to love to learn. Some of my happiest times have been when I have been learning. And there's all sorts of things I don't know, but I love to get around people who know more than I do and then pick their brain, you know, and find out what they know. Or seek out life experiences that will expand us. And with Wesleyan College here, there's all sorts of opportunities to do that. And of course, just going around meeting people who have success in their field is a way to learn. We can learn from books, we can learn from other people. And keep your couch potato time limited if you're going to be happy. I have found that 15 minutes of the news is enough for me, and I need to be outside and doing things. Sitting down to read a book or something like this for an hour or two is okay if I have plenty of physical activity throughout the day otherwise. Being a couch potato has taken us down another road. The obesity epidemic, eating too much salt, or whatever the snack foods that we eat, and prepared foods that we eat, those things come from being couch potatoes. And so I'm voting against that as far as happiness. And then find joy in daily activities. If we're ever going to be happy, it's not going to be the big times that will make us happy. Yes, there's the graduation days, and we might say those are 80% or 90% happy days. Those are certainly wonderful days. A wedding day, 99% happy day, wonderful day. But of course, we don't graduate every day. We don't get married every day. We have to find our happiness in the day-to-day activities. So we need to enjoy things. I have taken lately to enjoying Facebook. I allow myself about 4 bits of information or sharing with friends on Facebook every day. I mean, it seems inexhaustible. There's things that we could share, but time is limited. And so I say 4. I'll share 4 things every day. And I enjoy the feedback I get. It's a daily activity that is rewarding to me. I enjoy being out in my garden this time of the year, and then people stop and they ask about this flower or that plant, and we share back and forth. That's a daily activity that I'm enjoying, and then the interaction I get with people is enjoyable. When we put in our garden out front, and we have, understand the state road says there's 20,000 people driving by every day, but maybe it's not surprising that I get more feedback about the yard and the garden than I've gotten about anything else I've ever done in life, because maybe more people see it. But that's been the case. I've been surprised how much comment I get from people just driving by. And but we have to enjoy daily activity, whatever that activity is. We set about it and we enjoy doing it. A couple other thoughts. Because work, we're made to work. We're work and we're play, and we're love. All 3 of those make us normal people. We need to pursue a career that is interesting and challenging. And I know some people, some of my classmates have told me that they have stayed in a field. They didn't like what they were doing, but it was a good living. They were making money, paying their bills, and so forth. And in a way, that's a shame. Because they're telling me that it wasn't that interesting what they were doing. But the more interesting, the more challenging it is, the more likely we're to be happy. Growing things, I have found is a tremendous source of happiness. Plants, sharing garden produce gives a great deal of happiness. There's a challenge to it. There's no guarantee at the beginning of the season that we won't have a late frost and our apple crop will be ruined. But it's worth putting the apple tree in anyway, isn't it? Because there will be bumper crops some years. Find a balance for time for personal priorities. You decide what your personal priorities are. Some people have decided family is not a personal priority, and we have a great deal of divorce rates, don't we? 50% or whatever the rate is, it's too high. But if family is important, make that a priority. If church is important, make that a priority. You list your own priorities. I would suggest family and faith right up the top, but friends, community, education, talents, career, service, you can set your own priorities, but find a balance. Find a balance there, and then what we can call in the moment awareness. This is a great source of happiness. Again, people who look backwards may be depressed, they may be missing the boat. People look ahead are worried. There's a lot of things that will never happen, but we can worry about them. Who knows what the stock market will do? Who knows if we'll have war with China or in outer space or whatever we could worry about. But we don't control any of that. All we can do is, for happiness, is the in-the-moment awareness. Enjoy the moment we have. It's called the presence. And I think I saw this in Peanuts cartoon. He says, we need to enjoy today. That's why it's a present. And then take off on the word the present time, today. A couple other thoughts. As a doctor, we live in a very stressful times for hospitals, for doctors, for sick people, and there's nothing wrong with stress. If it can make us stronger. If what doesn't kill us will make us stronger. I've heard that saying before. But if you're going to be in a stressful situation, and I certainly advocate for teams, then think about that. So, for example, a healthcare team. Doctor, nurse, all the technicians, all the people that make up a healthcare team make it an enjoyable experience in the midst of stress. People who've been on all-state sports teams will recall how good the feeling is, but yet maybe they forget all the practices they did, all the bodybuilding, all the plays that they ran again and again and again, so they could run it correctly in the middle of a big game. Those are all things that build us, as positive stressors. The other thing is relationships. If we are trampling on other people, if we're neglecting other people, especially our own children, our own kin, then perhaps we're missing the boat on happiness and a meaningful life. Relationships are what it's all about. We cannot understand ourselves except in relationship to other people. So that's an important thing. And I want to just close with one thought, one final thought here. Much more to be said, but there's another author, Jacob Needleman, and he talks about the way of the physician. He said, "The goodness is not what is the truth, but rather how to search for the truth. Not what is the good, but rather the search for the good." So it's in the search that we want to live. We don't know the answers to everything. We need to be stretching ourselves, and we need to be saying, I don't know the truth, but I'm searching for the truth. I don't know everything that's good, but I'm searching for what's good. If we do that, we'll end up having a meaningful life. Well, there's many more things that could be said about it, but I thought this was worth coming to as a program, especially as we go toward the Strawberry Festival this year. 74 years we've been doing that, and that began as a Great Depression Lions Club meeting, and the town fathers were reflecting, what can we do to build our community? And someone said, a professor at Wesleyan, a biology professor, said, let's raise strawberries. The soil's right, the climate's right, we have the workforce here to do it, and look what has become of it, the Strawberry Festival. So it's a search for meaning is a good thing to emphasize at this time. Well, until the next time, though, this is Dr. Greenbrier Almond thanking you for joining us on our program, Tender Loving Care. Special thanks to Channel 3 for this opportunity to come your way each week. Take care.
Stories of a West Virginia Doctor, written by Dr. Harold D. Almond. A collection of 55 short stories about his experience as a small-town doctor in central West Virginia. And Tender Loving Care. Stories from a West Virginia Doctor, Volume 2, written by Dr. Greenbrier Almond, using videotapes to write 70 additional stories of his father's very colorful life as a small-town doctor. They can be found for purchase at Amazon.com and most local bookstores. Tune into Channel 3 Buckhannon for Tender Loving Care with Dr. Greenbrier Almond, where he talks about the connection between Christianity and medicine.